Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I'm your producer, Garnett Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Candace Martin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 3, episode 14 of Invisible Women in Sport, and I'm your host, Candace Martin. Today, you are all in for a treat as I am joined by Rachel Melendez, Mabee, PGA Works Program Lead for PGA Reach. Thank you, Rachel, so much for joining us today. 30-second timer. Let's see. All right, you ready?
I think so.
Favorite golf course?
I would have to go with East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta.
Okay. Favorite golf stroke?
I don't know what you mean by that, but I think I know what you mean, and it would be putting.
Okay. Night in or night out?
Night in. I'm a homebody.
Okay. Favorite vacation destination?
Oh, I sound so boring because it's where I'm from, but Puerto Rico.
I love Puerto Rico too.
Okay. I feel like it sounds so boring.
No, you're fine. Last one, work from home for the rest of the year or work in the office?
Oh my gosh. I guess I'm a true homebody. I'm going to work from home for the rest of the year. I have my dog mom and I'm a homebody, so I like being at home.
Absolutely. So, okay, so I used the wrong reference. So how do you refer to, so you answered it correctly, but I wasn't sure how to reference the different golf
strokes or like shot. I mean, they're different golf shots, I guess.
Okay.
So every shot is a stroke. So that's why I was like, I didn't know.
Okay.
I think I know. So there's different shots, like a driver. You can hit irons, chip shots, putting, bunker shots. So I went with putting.
Absolutely. So don't tell Dr. Boyd I did fair rights to leadership, but clearly I forgot that portion.
No worries. I won't tell him. No worries. I won't tell him.
All righty, Rachel. So we're going to jump right in. So the other day in the pre-screen, you shared with us how, your dad played a vital role in you getting your start into sports. So can you talk a little bit about that right now and kind of how that played a role in getting you to where you are today with PGA Reach?
So I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? My internet went in and out a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So we talked about the other day how your dad played a vital role in getting you your start into sports. So I wanted you to shed a little light on that. How did that impact you then, and how has it impacted where you are today with PGA Reach?
Well, talking about my father is probably, I'm a total daddy's girl. So you look it up in the dictionary and you probably have my face by it. So I love talking about him, and he has since passed, but he was my absolute sort of start into the sport. I often tell the story that, so I am the youngest of 2. I'm 11 years, my brother and I are 11 years apart. So you can deduce that I was a little bit of an oopsie. And my brother is that quintessential sort of, you just smart beyond words, and kind of doesn't have then the other side of the house. So he got the brains, I got the beauty. I'm just going to leave it at that. Right. Just, I don't know how much he would appreciate me saying that, but I digress. So, my father definitely tried with sports with my brother, and it just never took. So I used to make fun of my father and say, did you just kind of give up? And when I came along, you were like, screw it. I'm just going to try sports with the girl. We'll give it a go. And he did, and it stuck. So, sports, him and I we worked hand in glove together, and golf was his passion. So he definitely tried golf with me. And I apparently had a very natural ability for it. And it's stuck. It was our bond. He was my only teacher. He was my caddy, up until college. He literally was the only person that I trusted when it came to the sport, my game, anything. It was daddy. Even in college, I had a world-renowned golf coach, and I'm still calling him well, I'm having some problems. Can you help me out? And I'm married to a PJ professional, and he even knew, even to the day my dad died, I was still asking my dad for help. on my game. And today I still, the life lessons that he's taught me throughout the sport. But he also was one of the first Puerto Rican. He's a Puerto Rican man. I'm an Afro-Latina woman. My mother is Black. My father is Puerto Rican. He was the only person of color at his company at an executive level. So learning from him about his own experiences and how he leveraged golf to his advantage. At first, it was a business tool for him, and it ultimately became a passion of his. But those kind of, I'll say, business lessons and life lessons that golf is known for, I definitely got a firsthand look from my father.
Absolutely. So on the tip of talking about those experiences and some of the experiences that he was able to share important to you, what has your experience been like as a woman of color, as a brown woman of color in a white male-dominated industry, not only within the office, but also on the course?
Yeah.
Like, what has that looked like for you? What kind of things have you learned? What have you encountered?
When I first took the job with the PGA of America, it wasn't in this capacity. Actually, I worked on championships, and I loved it. It was events, and I think I had a sense of I'm the only one in the room. I don't know if it really came to fruition until the capacity that I'm in now, which is really taking a deep dive into DE&I.
Yeah.
But I vividly remember speaking to a mentor of mine when I transitioned to this role, because I had my self-doubts, as we all do, and I'm a perfectionist and I always want to do a great job. And I said, I don't know, can I do this? I've been in marketing and communications and events forever. How do I translate that?
Yeah.
And he just, again, I remember this vividly. He just looked at me as like, you are a Black woman in sports, in golf. No one can speak to the headwinds that you've experienced to ultimately, create programs and initiatives that can help break down the barriers that you experienced. So I've really taken that to heart and have reflected a lot on my own experiences as being, sort of one of the onlys. I do stand on the shoulders of my heroes and sheroes, like a Renee Powell, like a Althea Gibson. I stand on their shoulders because I inevitably want to keep kind of scaling what they ultimately kind of busted open some doors for me. But the fact of the matter is, I'm still saying I'm the first this, or I'm the first woman in this boardroom, or I'm the first to do this. So I have to now, I take a lot of pride in cultivating kind of the next generation of leaders that can have seats at the table, in golf, in sports, whatever the case might be. But our, decisions that impact our communities need to be made by people that look like us, because they ultimately know we know our experiences.
Absolutely. So you're working, trying to fill those rooms with more people that look like us, who maybe don't look like us, who aren't in those rooms, or we haven't seen many of those individuals within those rooms. So what specific things are you and PGA Reach kind of working on to increase the number of people, Black and brown people, who are in those spaces?
So the association, and I'll just quickly go, so the PGA of America is broken up into an association, which is the PGA of America, and then we have our 501c3, or our foundation, which is where I reside, called PGA Reach. And under the foundation, there exists a very specific inclusion pillar called PGA Works, which is exactly what I direct. That's what is completely under my purview. Mm-hmm. However, the association has a kind of I call them areas of commitment. And there's a lot in supplier inclusion, community engagement, workforce diversification, and education and training. And I fall into sort of that workforce diversification. Mm-hmm. So PGA Works is very, very specific in its mission to diversify our workforce. And I would say our workforce and beyond. So a lot of our partners are non-endemic to golf, Bank of America's, sort of other institutions that aren't golf specific, but really want to tap into the talent that I'm starting to cultivate. So through our programs, we have fellowship programs, which are 1 year paid entry-level opportunities. We have scholarships to some of our GMU universities, which are golf management universities, if any of our students want to pursue PGA membership. And then we have these career exploration events, which to me cast the widest net into our audiences, because we go where our championships go, and we host these really incredible events at the backdrop of our championships, which includes our PGA Championship, our Ryder Cup, our Women's PGA Championship, but we also do small ones at HBCUs, at grassroots organizations like with 100 Black Men, and there's these different grassroots type of initiatives that will really start to to get the word out, because we can't, as the association, cannot come in trying to save the day when we are not a trusted resource in our communities. It is not for us to dictate yet how we can come in and save the day. And, now it's for Black people and now it's for brown, like we just can't.
Right.
So we had to come to an acknowledgement of that. And I was vocal about it to my leadership, that we have to partner with those organizations that have been doing this work for way longer than we have in our communities, that are way more trusted than we are, and who need the help. I mean, they also need, it's no secret that minority serving nonprofits are severely underfunded, particularly in sports, and I'll say in golf that I'm closest to. I see it all the time. So why not have an organization like us partner with them, to provide funding, provide our programs to them that ultimately reaches kind of our communities.
Absolutely. So Rachel, I gotta ask,
Yeah. Oh Lord.
for people who, there are a lot of assumptions out there when it comes to the golf and the PGA industry. So do you have to have had played golf or know about golf to work in golf?
I am so glad you asked that, because that's what I love about my specific program, is I feel like there's like a unique value proposition to it, right? Like it speaks to the golfer and the non-golfer. You absolutely, to work in our industry, you do not have to know a lot about golf or even play golf. I liken it, what about folks that want to work for the NFL? Rarely do you hear students or candidates thinking, oh, I can't work there because I don't play football.
Yeah.
There's something about golf that still is this myth that we're trying to continuously break down, that you have to play or know a lot about golf. And I tried to scream that through the rooftops. And there's great testimonials. I mean, our fellowships, there are plenty of non-golfers. One of the young ladies that I just hired onto my team, she is a non-golfer. I hired her after meeting her at Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute. She's an HBCU grad, but she's killing it. I mean, she's thriving in an industry that otherwise she thought that she also thought she had to know a lot about golf or play golf to be in it. And now she's leading kind of the one of the programs that initially even brought her into the industry. So I love how things like that can come full circle.
Yes, absolutely. So if you were wondering, for all my viewers, if you're wondering, just know you do not have to have this robust amount of golf knowledge or have played the game in order to submit that application. So
let's just say that for the people in the back, as they say, like we will continuously say that. And I'll just add on to it is that so I sit on the board for the Women in Golf Foundation, and one of the things that we often have as part of that we have a collegiate championship as part of it, is we have a career kind of component to it. And I remember sitting in a round table, and these are collegiate golfers, so they do play golf.
Yeah.
But when there's still a level of awareness and education that I find myself still providing, and I love it. Because I was in a round table with a young lady, unbelievably gifted and smart, and she was studying physical therapy, and she loved golf, but she had and she outwardly was asking, well, I'm studying physical therapy, but I love golf, and I don't know if there's any place for me to be in golf. And I mean, I just looked at her and I was like, are you crazy? Like, do you know that there are people like you that travel around the world with golfers doing physical therapy for golfers? And it was like a light bulb went off. It was like this aha moment for her when she's like, oh my God, I had no idea. and that's where I find such joy are those kind of very one-on-one conversations. So again, you do not have to play golf or no golf. There's transferable skills that you can absolutely apply to our industry.
Absolutely. And I think I have like a similar story, because I was in undergrad, started out on track to be a physical therapist. I switched over because I realized like there are actually people that work in sport. Like there are actually people that make this possible. So I said, oh, okay. Now see. All right.
Sometimes it just takes a little bit of, again, that education. And if our kids don't know what they don't know, and I I love bearing that burden, Candace, of really starting to put two and two together for our students, because I do feel like this industry can thrive with more Black and Brown candidates and Black and Brown just people helping to make decisions and reshape, kind of refresh and reshape, and I'll say kind of redefine what golf has been, like redefine the tradition. Yes. I mean, look at the sneaker culture that is inevitable, especially to our communities. And now it's part of golf. If you would have told me that I would be wearing Jordans on the golf course, I would have said you were crazy. And here we are, there's a whole division of Jordan brands now that is specific to golf. We have hoodies on we are completely redefining what golf looks like. And I think that's finally having this great effect on attracting more youth of color into our business. And it's just that much more welcoming and inviting.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. All righty, Rachel. So also for the people in the back, let's explain what your job looks like. How would you explain it to someone with no knowledge? DE&I, program lead, kind of tell us what you do on ideal day. We know no day is the same.
Right.
Ideally, what does it look like?
Yes, you're right. No day is the same. And I think that's why I thrive in this kind of industry. And I want to be kind of clear. I'm intentionally using that word thrive in my line of work. And again, the same mentor that told me about me transitioning to this job, he talks about thriving versus surviving. And in our spaces, we want to bring students in, not just to survive. We want them to bring in to really thrive, ascend into key positions, not just kind of, I'm here and I'm checking a box. So I'm intentionally using that word thrive. So my days are not similar. And if you can't already tell, I am a talker. I love to talk. I think especially things that I'm very passionate about. So most of my day is relationship building. So that means that I am speaking to those grassroots organizations. I'm speaking to students. I do a lot of outreach to both those sets of audiences, students from a recruitment standpoint, to just start to engage them and start the conversation about golf, about our industry, about playing it maybe, but definitely working in it. And then those relationships with some with donors, but mostly with sort of nonprofit serving organizations that if you didn't think, this is the first, okay, so you thought that there wasn't going to be a dog in any of your sessions, and mine decided to say, hey, I'm here. So this is real life, right? This is why we love lives. So sorry about that, but she is a very needy puppy of mine. So it is definitely about the relationships I want to cultivate with those organizations, because again, like I said earlier, those are the ones that have been doing the work far longer than I have. I'm in no mindset, and as a Black woman, I know better that I can't come in to save the day. But we're absolutely here to partner with you to get the word out about not only what you're doing, but how we can elevate, scale what you're doing, and then bring in my programming. So it's a lot of relationship building, and then a lot of relationship building internally. We have internal stakeholders that, while for the most part, I have buy-in, especially from my CEO, Seth Waugh, but there's still internal stakeholders that I find myself not fighting by any means, but definitely bringing awareness to what we're trying to do, so I can bring on more allies. I can bring on more advocates of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. So with that information, you work on relationship building and trying to get individuals either recruiting students or trying to get buy-in from internal team. So what does it look like if you have an initiative or a program in mind, as far as for putting that one into place? What do those steps look like? And then kind of two-part question, how do you choose one over another?
So with buy-in, like I said earlier, I'm really fortunate that our CEO has a lot of buy-in into what we're doing, and not just what I'm doing from a DE&I standpoint in general. Those kind of 4 areas of commitment, he is very well committed to all of those. So it's great to have his buy-in, and what I love about working with our leadership is that they're willing to listen and to trust sort of in the expertise of those that they have hired to do this work. I think that a lot of times there is a notion of everything is siloed into the DE&I department or into this DE&I program. There's a lot of making sure and ensuring that our programs and our, I guess, what we're ultimately trying to accomplish goes across all lines of our businesses. It is not just siloed into our department, and also not just bearing the burden on the Black people at the organization.
Right.
We can't bear the burden of fixing the problem. We just can't. So there is a lot of educating when it comes to that. As far as, and I think I heard the question correctly about like, is it choosing which program to?
Yeah, like prioritizing which over another, how does that process look like? What does that?
I feel like I've never been in a real position to like prioritize, if you will.
Yeah.
I will, however, say that, we're embarking on a very big capital funding campaign. And my program is actually, I would say, the largest kind of recipient, if you will, of the donations, of the total amount we're trying to donate, we're kind of the biggest percentage of that. So within that percentage, we have to prioritize, if you will, some of the programming.
Yeah.
So, and again, I don't even know if it's prioritizing as much as knowing what can cast a really meaningful net into our communities.
Yeah.
So I think that might be the lens that I kind of put on when we think about allocating donor dollars, or we allocating certain grants and revenues to then have programs kind of be executed against. But it's I don't know, priority might be a little bit of a, I don't know, it's weird, Candace. I don't think I've ever been in a true position to prioritize, but we've definitely sort of been in a position to hear the feedback of our members and know what are our pain points and how we can, I'll say, maybe reprioritize some of the some of how our programs are executed. I think that's probably the best way that we've been able to sort of rejudge and refresh what we're doing.
Yeah, I got you. So in the sense of that, what would you want to tell someone who may be interested in pursuing a role such as yours, or maybe even a role just within the PGA? Because on Invisible Women, we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I get it.
What would you like to share with those individuals, those young women, those males who may be interested in pursuing and penetrating this space?
Well, I mean, first of all, I love what these sessions do and how it's titled, because Invisible Women in Sport really speaks to me. The best thing that I can say is to give it a shot. I cannot say that, as you just said, there's a good, bad, and ugly to it, Candace. And I can't say it's all roses and rainbows and ice cream. But if we don't start to bring in more women of color to have seats at the table, then it's never going to be roses and unicorns and rainbows and ice cream. We're still going to be at the mercy of our white counterparts to make decisions that affect our communities, and I can't digest that, right? So it's a burden I love to bear in this position, to really start to inspire more women, and particularly more Black women, to just try it, to just give it a go. And I will give a huge shout out to again the young lady that I just brought onto my team, Kim Dinkins. She's not a golfer, and I vividly remember her telling me if she did not see me at the Career Expo, she would never have approached the booth, because she had this kind of stereotype of what golf is, and it didn't look like me. And it certainly, in her mind, didn't look like her. Right. And I take that to heart now, and I want to empower her to be the next sort of influencer to more young women. So we have to keep having these sort of micro moments of inclusion, as I'll call them, to disrupt the traditions of what our industry has seen. But if we don't start to at least try, then yeah, our decisions are still going to be continued to be made by our white counterparts. And then where do we go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. So you heard it first. Fill out those applications. Go ahead and submit them and give it a try. So we've talked about being the only in a room. We've talked about trying to recruit and retain more Black and brown men and women. So, when you're in this space, working and pushing for diversity and inclusion, how do you do that without coming off biased? We talked a little bit about it in the pre-screen, so I did want you to share that with our audience.
Yes. I think it's always going to be hard not to come across bias, especially again to white counterparts.
Yeah.
I think 2020 for all of us was just a year of reflection and reckoning and healing, right? And I particularly, even though I am visibly a Black woman, I've been a Black woman for 41 years, but sometimes it takes certain instances to really just like, man, I'm a Black woman and I'm a Black woman in golf. Like, like sometimes you just have this realization. And 2020 a little bit was that for me. And I dropped a little bit of the, I don't know if it's code switching. I know that's kind of a bad word, but we're being real here. I dropped a lot of that, and I didn't want to give into the white fragility or trying to adhere to the white fragility and be scared to, I guess, condemn or to offend my white counterparts. And I'm glad I did. I think being my most authentic self in 2020 has proved to be most successful to my leaders. My leaders are white. I'm fortunate to have some female leaders. They are not Black, but I'm very fortunate to have some female leaders that I look up to and also consider mentors. But I vividly remember also being on a Zoom call and my CEO, who had probably been in the office a year, and God bless him, he was dealing with a pandemic, and then 2020 with the killings of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna and of course George Floyd. And I mean, he's probably like, what the hell did I get myself into? But I have to give him all the credit in the world, because I remember being in the Zoom meeting with our Black employees, who aren't a lot right now or at the time. And it was this sort of check-in, but also it also was a very authentic, like, man, what do we do? What are we doing next? And he's giving his speeches, and he's a very thorough man, and he, of course, what we all have heard before about him being colorblind. And I just raised my hand at that Zoom meeting, and I, without thought, of course, after the fact, I thought about it, but I just was like, I need you to never say that. Just don't, please, I'm begging you, never ever say that to me, and never say it on any kind of platform, because now more than ever, I need you to see me as a Black woman. I need you to see how I am suffering and how I need to be healed. And I need to know that you see that, because your next moves are going to affect me.
Right.
And of course, after I said that, I was like, I'm getting a pink slip tomorrow. Like, there's no question, I'm getting fired. There's no question. But obviously I'm still here. So, okay. But I do remember that he was like, oh, I had no idea. I had no idea. That's such a good perspective. And in his outward statements and sort of, public statements, I'll just say, he referenced that, that once he was sort of had the narrative of being colorblind, and it took someone, in our office to really point out that I can't think like that. I'm a white privileged male, and I can't think like that.
Right.
And I think it really sort of drove home our relationship now, that has inevitably kind of come to fruition, because he really does trust in what we inevitably do, what I inevitably do, and with my programming. I feel like that was a really turning point for my own professional career, for my own professional relationships within the PGA, and definitely in advancing DEI. As much as I can't sound biased, I feel like I always am, because it's my experience.
Yeah.
But I also see it through the lens of it's a two-way street, and it's a two-way education. It's a two-way conversation. We're both having courageous conversations here, both of us.
Absolutely. So due to unpopular beliefs, PGA, we do see you guys making those small efforts, change what the game looks like, to get more people, Black and brown people, within that space. So we definitely see you, and we see the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Like you said, we also have to apply and like put ourselves out to be vulnerable also, because you never know where it will lead to.
I love how you said that, to be vulnerable also. And I want this to take a long time. I want it to, because if not, then all of this work I'm doing is probably going to fall off when, if I ever leave the PGA. These are systemic changes we're trying to make, not just like check boxes. So I need it to take a long time. So because we're changing policies and procedures and hiring practices and, everything that has been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years. Because, the PGA of America is over 100-year organization, and golf is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. So we're changing a lot, but it has to take a long time.
Right. That's sustainability. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So friends, I'm coming up on my last question. So please go ahead and begin to put your questions in the chat for Rachel, and then Maya will take us through Q&A. All right, Rachel. So in a pre-screen, we did talk about it a little bit, but my final question, what would you tell your younger self? What is something you have learned since you have grown older, or maybe something you could still be working on? What would you tell younger Rachel?
I am always a work in progress, first of all. So, and I think that humanizes all of us, right? And there's a few things. Is one, nothing is linear. Nothing. Rarely. I don't even want to make a blanket sort of absolute statement, but rarely are things linear. I know I had a path in mind when I was going into college, and I did do it. I mean, I was a communications and events sort of person and marketing person, but ultimately now I'm not. So I think your path is never or is rarely linear, and that is okay. I would love to tell my perfectionist younger self that is okay, and to also continuously build your network. I think that there is sort of this I don't know if it's misconception, but that, you build a few mentors and that's it, and I'm good. I've been working for almost 20 years, and I'm still building my network and my mentorship sort of capacity, because they're always kind of part of my professional development.
Right.
But to add on to that, to any of our students that are pursuing mentors or mentorship relationships, is to also get out of our vortex of sameness. I know I'm always going to be drawn to Black women as my mentors, or even just women. But I think we have to even diversify our own mentorship network, because there are different perspectives that can help us also in our professional development.
Absolutely. And I can agree with you really on both of those, because one, coming out of high school, had this idea, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to play volleyball. Right. And then cool, I always knew what was next.
Yep.
I interned at the SWAC conference office. I interned at the NCAA as a postgraduate intern. COVID hit, knocked me back home. Nobody knew what the sport industry looked like. I was so frustrated because I was so used to knowing what was next, and just knew that I was on this path. I knew where I was going, I knew how I was going to get there. I'm back in school. So I'm just like,
Case
in point. Absolutely. So it's I had to deter a little bit, but hopefully, after completion of this program, I'm able to walk into that full-time role, the one that I foresaw leaving the NCAA. And then the other piece that you shared, as far as finding those mentors, WISE. I don't know if you're familiar with the WISE professional.
Oh yeah.
And so they sent out the mentor-mentee application, and it asked if you specified on gender. I was like, no. No, I just, looking for someone who can pour into me, but who I can also provide information to about whatever. It could be about pop culture. It could be about music, so I don't necessarily have to look like me. I have a lot of Black women who are standing firm behind me. So, say I'll let God take it, whoever that mentor is that I may be paired with, maybe they'll look like me, maybe not. That's okay.
I love it, but they'll appreciate your experiences and your perspective. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Well, that's great. I look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, well, Rachel, this has been a pleasure spending a few minutes with you. And so I will throw it over to Maya King for Q&A.
Okay, so moving in to Q&A, I'll start off with the first question in the chat that comes from Iane Miranda, which is one of our other GAs. She asks, how do you track or measure how successful your efforts have been in your role?
Great question. So the program is actually one of our newest programs, specifically the PJ Works program that I oversee. It's only been around for about 5 years. And full transparency, in the first, it was let's just get it out the door. There was no trackability to it. And we're finally really putting some numbers to it. I liken it to we're at a sales funnel, like we're still at the top of the sales funnel. So we're definitely a little bit more in the quantitative measurements versus, and I don't even want to say versus qualitative, but we want to keep casting such a wide net with our programs. Specific to, I'll say, our fellowship program, we track results when it comes to not only the diversity and the demographic composition of our fellows with intentional outreach to those organizations that I was speaking to earlier, but also how they get jobs after the fact. I take a lot of pride in that, it's not a 1 year and then, out the door you go, good luck to you. We definitely take a part and work hand in glove with them on their professional development to get full-time jobs afterwards. So with that, we've really tracked their success post-fellowship, and we're about an 89% full job placement rate. And the only reason it's not even a little bit higher is we have a lot of international students that have unfortunately not been able to get sponsored by employers. So they've actually gone back to school to continue their education. But we take a strong hold and a strong footing in getting them those full-time jobs post-fellowship. And now we're instilling a mentorship program because that's the next step. We don't want to just check the box of entry-level jobs. We want to make sure that our students are also ascending into these, kind of key positions. And we're looking forward to kind of putting some measurements to the mentorship program that we put out. But right now, for a lot of our other programs, it's definitely very quantitative. We have touched about, I would say, 1,400 students with our career exploration program called Beyond the Green at our championships. That has grown exponentially from about 60 per year to now, I would say, about 500 students per year that we touch through that program.
Yeah, the follow through is really important, especially for the fellowship positions. Yeah. Sometimes you finish an internship or fellowship, and then it's like, okay, well, like what's next? Like hoping you get guidance to figure out where you're supposed to go. Like,
yeah.
So the next question in the chat comes from Garnett Overby. He asks, what are some of the programs or initiatives that PJ Reach is engaged in to increase the visibility of women of color golfers?
So when we speak about the women of color golfers, again, that speaks to a very different, I'll say, lens than what PJ Works does. That's from a player development lens. And we have a few programs. And what I really, again, admire about what our player development team is doing is that they also are engaging with those minority serving organizations to get the word out. So we do have a junior league program that is our youth pillar. But we also know that at the beginning, they were serving more our country club kids, if you will. So we have partnered with Dick's Sporting Goods to offer scholarships, especially to those that are underserved in our underserved communities to get into junior league programs. You mentioned First Tee earlier. We do have partnerships with the First Tee as well. And again, getting more programs out in our communities. And then lastly, we have our last pillar, which is called A Place to Play. And it's really about revitalizing or building more municipal golf courses. A lot of the research and statistics still show that municipalities can offer such an incredible access point, particularly for underserved communities, for minority serving communities, or just new golfers, for females, that is way more welcoming, way more inclusive than what you might picture golf being at your traditional golf courses. So our foundation goes into certain markets, and I'll say, for lack of a better phrase, create seed money to help, again, revitalize some of these municipality golf courses so they can be kind of safe places, if you will, for beginner golfers, for golfers of color, to really start to their hopeful love of the sport.
And then our next question in the chat, another one from Iane, who asks, what does the future look like for you career-wise? Would you like to transition to another sporting organization, or would you like to take on another role within the PGA?
Well, as we talked about things not being linear, I never thought that I would make a career out of my experiences that ultimately leads to my D&I career. I think my path now is in D&I. I think that that's sort of my mission served, if you will, or my purpose served. As far as staying at the PGA, you know, you never know what the future holds, of course. Right now, I have a lot of work ahead of me still when it comes to making, you know, those systemic changes at the PGA, because you know, again, we keep talking about mentors. Another mentor of mine, and I remember her saying this, and now I live by it. She was very high up in the D&I industry and D&I space for another sporting organization. And she used to say, listen, I work hard, so I don't have a job in 10 years when D&I is not a thing. Like, it's just kind of naturally woven into the DNA of business planning and business strategies, where it's not just a thing or a department. So I kind of take that mindset a little bit. And that's how I feel about the PGA, is that I'm working against 100 years worth of tradition. So I have a lot of work to do to kind of soon, hopefully D&I is just not a thing, and it's just part of our natural form of business.
Mhm. So the last question from me, as someone who is interested in the DE&I space, what resources or tools do you use to gain more information, to think of new programming, and so on for the PGA?
I'm a constant student of the industry, so of course I will, you know, read articles constantly. I tap into resources like my mentors. I kind of observe trends in our space. I think that we can easily kind of get sucked into sort of what has worked even in DE&I. When I think our particular industry is still evolving. In most recent article I read that I'm actually enacting not only the PGA, but some of the boards that I serve on, is we say diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's more about ED&I, like we lead with equity, because we can absolutely have a diverse sort of workforce and maybe even an inclusive workforce, but it's still not equitable. We still have had sort of a late start. We still haven't started on an equal playing field, that is. So I've really started to take the mindset of all of the programs now. I lead with equity in mind even more than I do with diversity and inclusion. Equity is the hardest part, and I think that's the most systemic part of it all. And I think we have to shift to really start to lead with equity.
Thank you for that. That was the last question, so I can send it back to Candace to close out the show.
Thanks, Maya. Well, that was great, Rachel. I would like to say that I have definitely enjoyed spending some time with you today. I think you have done a phenomenal job in shedding light on what PGA and PGA Works, some of those efforts that you guys are doing behind and in front of the scenes. I think you have shed light on just what PJ is, you know, what it looks like for a Black or brown woman to work for the PGA. And I would like to thank you for all of the tips and information that you have shared with us today.
Oh, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on as well. And I love everything that you're doing, and it's so appropriately titled. So was honored to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And I'm going to close out the show.
Okay.
All righty, friends. Once again, special thanks to all the organizations that registered Rachel and the Invisible Women in Sport team. Please, please, please use the QR code displayed on your screen to support us with a financial gift as we continue to change lives through the power of sport. And once again, thank you to our team, host myself, Rachel, producer Garnett, Matt, Iane, and Maya. Special thank you once again to PGA Reach for allowing Rachel to spend some time with us today. All righty, friends. Please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed on future programs at Institute SSJ. If you ever miss an episode, we've got you covered on our YouTube. We have all of our episodes posted and up to date. Following today's production, you all will receive an email about a survey. As we continue to improve our production, please, please, please fill out this short survey. Also, viewers, we get a lot of inquiries about internships. If any of our supporters or members have internships available, please send your information to our producer, Garnet Overby, at goverby@sportandsocialjustice.org, so we can send that information out to the individuals reaching out to us. All righty, friends, we're going to be off for a little while, but tune in next month, October 6th, same time, same place for season 3, episode 15 of Invisible Women in Sport, where I will have a conversation with Miss Jamie Boggs, Vice President of Athletics at Grand Canyon University. So please be on the lookout for that registration link. All righty, friends, and once again, I'm your host, Candace Martin of Invisible Women in Sport. See us now. All righty, friends, we'll see you all October 6th.